Well, hello everybody, this is Tim Green with the Rattle Magazine. Welcome to your critique of the week. It's Friday, February 20th. Thanks so much for joining me. Looking forward to a fun and exciting critique of the week this week. Let's see, who do we have on hand? Winston Munn's here, Mary Keating, Steve Horrell is here, T. Coleman, Christina Nueven, Heather Hay, let's see, Sarah Rashid Khan is here, Janette Burmia, Nancy Sabanek, Kimberly Gibson-Tran, Katie Dozier in the next room over. We got J.R. Granola, Terry Miller's here, Tom Barlow, Chelsea McClellan, Hamid Malik, PMB, Jamie Thomas is here, Christopher Stewart. Good to see you all. Dylan F7E. Hello. Holly York's here. Marie Maribade Carr's here. Emily Arnold Fernandez, great to see you all. So it's going to be a really fun critique this week, as it always is, as we look at poems, talk about what works and what doesn't, try to move beyond talking about things like line breaks and diction and voice and all sorts of poetic elements of craft, just how to make poems actually function as vehicles for emotional energy, intellectual ideas, things like that. Make people experience poems in interesting ways. There's a whole bunch of craft involved that we're going to talk about, as we always do every Friday. And a reminder, if you'd like to submit poems for critique, it's not the general submissions. We don't pull random poems out. It's only people who offer up their poems for critique who would like the feedback. All you have to do is go to rattle.com. Up under content, you'll see Critique of the Week as one of the categories. Submit your poems there, and we'll get to you at some point if you show up. And that's what we're going to do. It's been working really well, I think. So Dylan F7E already says, I have 2 pieces in my queue and maybe incorporated into today's critique. Great. We'll do Dylan as one of the poets. Who else has poems here? If you have poems in the queue, let me know right now, and we'll get to yours first. We'll get to as many as we can. Usually it's 2, but we'll see what we can do. There are 308 submissions in the queue, so it's not... The days of getting to everybody are sort of gone. Okay, Janette Burmia's got some too. Okay, so that's it. We'll do Janette Burmia. You know what I should do, actually? So I don't have to scroll up later. I should write this down. That's a novel concept. Okay, so we got Dylan, and I think we just probably find them based on the word Dylan. And then we had Janette Burmia, right? Yeah, Janette Burmia. And someone else just said so too. Yeah, Janette Burmia. And J.R. Granola. So we'll see if we get to that too. We'll see if we get to the last one. Okay. Make sure I'm typing. Oh, yeah, Burmia. Okay, let me see if I can find Dylan's. And Dylan, we'll see if there's only one Dylan like that. Yep, Dylan Rust here. Okay, great. I will assume this is Dylan F7E. Dylan is a poet coming from Brooklyn, New York. Great to see you here. Let's see if there's any general questions. No general questions. That is a field. If you want to leave anything, you want to talk about a specific aspect of poetry, leave them in the little comments section. We can talk about some particular angle of it. But let's just take a look at these poems. The first one looks like a sestina. Okay. Here, this is Between Me and My Past. Okay. This is Sestina, Between Me and My Past. Let's take a look. Between me and my past. Maybe a little smaller. Okay. Between me and the past. Sorry. Between me and the past. I'll look back, but the past is the past. Splashed are the expressions in the brown of your iris as you smiled. A smile crowning your identity. Oh, to cherish. Tickled by your ideas in the moment you laugh. I recognize we wear the same face, only ideas changed. I shouldn't complain. I love my present. The man yesterday, could he say, I love my present? He would sit back, cover his ears, and utter, the past is the past. Like the boy before this man, only ideas changed. Recalling this exhausting feeling, I smiled. Oops, I lost it. The man who will read these words tomorrow, will you laugh? To have a face crippled through joy, oh, to cherish. These healing thoughts, oh, to cherish. How can I dread in complaint? I love my present. To the man who drew these words, did I already read this? Sorry. Why do you laugh? What can only be felt as a cliche joke? I accept the past is the past. Someplace else, a man whose ideas danced around silliness smiled, juxtaposed to the serious man's thoughts. Only ideas changed. Greeted with a sad man, still only ideas changed. Once happy he sang, "Oh, to cherish," and like a child lost in his thoughts, the sad man smiled. As if rehearsed, he uttered, "I love my present." He fanned off the serious man, insisting the past is the past, leaving his final remark, "Does it hurt if you laugh?" No words said, the serious man's expression exchanged, "I'll laugh if you laugh." Thoughts both laid in symmetry, only ideas changed. Together they both realized the past is the past, oh, to cherish. Without this hellish past, would my words prove deceitful if I said, "I love my present"? Either way, the man yesterday and today smiled. The truth blanketing their minds with mistrust, they still smiled. Humor drowned in absurdity. I can only ask both, do you laugh? Curiosity turned irrelevant since I love my present through the words carved from repetition. Only ideas changed. Oh, to cherish, I still wonder how I smiled. Smiled, only ideas changed. You laugh, oh, to cherish, I love my present. The past is the past. Okay, so that's interesting. I feel like, yeah. Exactly. Chelsea McClellan says, too much similarity of the repeated words between stanzas for me. And that's really the main thing. It felt, and notice, and I did read the same paragraph, or same stanza, I should say, twice by accident. I thought I'd scrolled farther than I did, and I read the same one, and it took me a while to notice, actually. And that's because there's so much, there's a lot of similarity from stanza to stanza, and a lot of similarity in the words chosen to, as Chelsea says. And what you really want to do with a sestina, the sort of the magic of it when it works, is to make it feel like it's really moving and going places, even using the same words. So you want to use words as your end words that have a lot of different ways you can structure them. Like a good one actually is present, because there's the word present, like I'm present in this moment. There's the present as a gift. There are a lot of ways, and you can even like fan out farther and do like represent and get creative in that way. You want to have words like that you can use in a lot of different ways. So it really is the key to a sestina is picking words that have a lot of things you can play, and they're different between each other, so it's sort of surprising each chime. I've heard some, I don't know if it was on the poetry space, there was somewhere somebody was talking about a sestina and about how it's important to have different parts of speech as the words you pick too, to make it feel fresh. Katie Dozier says, the way this circles back in itself makes me think it wants to be a villanelle. We need more specifics as well as concision. Yeah. And I totally agree there too. There is a feeling of, it feels more like refrain than it feels like moving in between, surprising how these words can mean different things. And the best, there's an episode, Erica Reed, who actually, we should say, is is this Sunday? Yeah, this Sunday's co-host along with Dick Westheimer on the community open lines, or community prompt lines. Yeah, that's what we call it. This Sunday, if you want to join that by Zoom link, go to rattle.com, find the prompt lines page, and then you'll see the link to the Zoom. It's 7 p.m. Eastern time. Anyway, Erica Reed, I believe, has a bunch of sestinas in one of her books, and what she does that's really interesting is that she divides them so that each, sort of in a ghazal-like way, where each stanza is its own little story. And I think that's a very interesting way to go about it. But that's the kind of thing you want to do. You want to really think about movement with a sestina, because using the same words over and over again, you end up, it's really easy for it to get repetitive. And the fun and surprise is when you have the same words saying totally different things as you go down the page. Yeah. So that's the number one thing I want to talk about. And I think it is a great idea from Katie to go back to the villanelle form, which has a refrain. You have some sort of refrains running through, and I do think that this condensed down to that length and utilizing that, because that the refrain itself does change a little bit as the poem goes on. So I think it's a great potential for a villanelle here. And the other thing that people have said is that, let's see, I'm just making sure that I had the right reference to Erica Reed. I think it was Erica Reed that did that. Anyway, the other thing is that there needs to be a lot more concrete imagery, as other people said. So if we look at the poem, I think we're not going to go, it's a pretty long one. We're not going to read through the whole thing again. But it's hard to find it. There are a lot of generalities, and there's nothing the reason why we want to use concrete language is because that's sort of something for our mind to hold on to. You know, you think if like maybe a poem is climbing up a mountainside, like the concrete words are the things that you get a grip on and you can sort of hold while you're sort of understanding everything else and like carry your weight kind of. There's a way that works. Whereas you need something concrete, something tangible to just sit like a rock in your mind that you can hold on to so you don't get lost. And in this poem, there isn't quite enough of that concrete stuff, that physical, I know where I am, to allow the reader to sort of go on the journey with you. We kind of get like lost. It's like we grab for things and, you know, it's not a solid footing. And so we just slip and we don't actually climb up the mountain. And so you really got to focus in a rewrite of this, of real details. Yeah, thanks, Dick. I wanted to confirm. I was a little, it is Erica Reed. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so focus on concrete details. So let's read the first stanza. I look back, but the past is the past. And that's one of those things that makes a nice refrain. Splashed are the expressions in the brown of your iris as you smiled. So we get a brown iris. That's like the only detail we get here. A smile crowning your identity, oh, to cherish. And we don't know who the you is, so we don't know who we're talking about yet. Tickled by your ideas, which is another abstraction, and the moment you laugh. So the person with brown eyes laughs. I recognize you wear the same face, but the same face is what? There's no detail in that face. Only ideas change. So it's the same person who laughed with a brown eye. I should complain, I love my present. That's all we get is this little, and that's not enough to build any sense of connection with what we're going on. And as Terry Miller says, brown is a poor modifier. It is. It's not, and even that one description is not very detailed. So we'll look at Kimberly Gibson Tran says stanza 2 is almost on the right track by introducing a specific person, the man yesterday, but we don't develop his character enough. Feels too symbolic. Yeah, so let's read that one too. The man yesterday, could he say, I love my present? So there is the man yesterday. We don't know if he's the man with a brown eye still. We don't have that much even to connect. He would sit back, cover his ears, and utter, the past is the past. Like the boy before this man. So there's a boy before the man yesterday. Only his ideas changed. Recalling this exhausting feeling, I smiled. The man who will read those words, tomorrow will you laugh? To have a face crippled through joy, or to cherish, yeah. So just all this stuff is so general. There's a really interesting idea. There's like a spark of something that you're digging into that's an actual thing worth exploring in a poem, I think, in this poem. It's just there's not enough concrete stuff for us to follow along on the journey and feel like we got somewhere. So we need to we want to see this man yesterday. And if you look at any poem in Rattle, if you look at any poem that you love, any poem by, I don't know, just anybody, like pick a poet, pick a poet Robert Frost, William Blake, anybody, Kim Adenizio, whatever poet you happen to look up, hit the random button on Rattle. Here, let's do that, actually. Why not? We'll just go to rattle.com. I do love the random button. It was a lot of work getting a random button to work. Oops, we don't need music, though. Hang on. But here, the first the poem that came up on random is this. Hardship in a Nice Place by Jack Riddle. Okay, and Jack's been on the Rattlecast before, a friend of the show. The roof on our house slants out over the garden, if it rains, the water falls on what blossoms, still arc in late August. Okay, so we get our house, so now it's me speaking about my family. We don't know exactly who, which family members, but we know it's our house. It's a house. There's a roof. It slants over a garden. If it rains, this is what water does. And it's August, And then we figure out who the R is. The next sentence, my wife, that's what I'm talking about when I say R. What's she doing? She's sleeping right now. We know exactly what's going on here. So we can follow along with the poem. Okay? And that's really every poem that's successful has something tangible that you can attach your mind to. Otherwise, you just get lost. Let's take a look at another random button. Oops. This is Bearer of Light. Is this from the Young Poets Anthology? Yeah, this is from the Rattle Young Poets Anthology. Bearer of Light. Oh, bearer of the light, bringer of change, illuminate the darkest crevices. Reveal. So we're talking about bearer of light. We don't even know who that is. But still, you see that's a tangible thing. That's the person who bears the light, And then we get, the blackest waters. We get some stuff here. And that's just it's a 13-year-old's poem. Let's do it again. Random poem. Blue sky. And we got to shrink this a little bit so it fits. Hang on. But this is, I got to move it around, I guess. On weekends, when the woman walks up the hills, so we have a woman walking up hills on weekends. She does it to see the sun. So we know why she's walking already. We know who it is. She's a woman walking up hills. We know what she's doing. We know why. To see the sun. It's sea level, thick smog obliterates the sky. And it just goes on like that, It's sea level, thick smog obliterates the sky, a gray and toxic smothering. So we get the sense of the sky as she's walking up the hill. Despite the altitude, once she gets above it, she breathes easier. She has not seen such a blue sky from down below since childhood. Then we get the haiku, and it continues later. But masquerade party, strangers crowding into a downtown loft. And already, so we get the woman walking uphill. We get this part of the haibin, right? In the body section of the haibin, we get the story of a woman walking uphill, which will continue later. And even on the unconnected but tangential haiku is in the haibin form, so which is a standalone haiku, we get this, masquerade party. We know we're at a masquerade party. In the first two words, strangers crowding. We know what's going on in the masquerade party into a downtown loft. We get a whole little scene right there. Right, so that's what we need, and hopefully that those examples help a lot, just to get a sense of what we mean when we say concrete language, and also the why behind why it's important to have. It's something for us to hold on to, so then we can connect on an emotional level and get to that mountaintop that you're climbing up in the poem. Okay, let's take a look at the second poem from this poet, and that would be again, it's Dylan Rust. This is Little Boy's Responsibility. And the reason why we do two poems is to see if it's sort of the same issue or if that was like a one-off, because we don't want to spend a lot of time talking about one piece of advice and then that just happened to be a weird poem someone was experimenting with. So let's see what we're doing with the other poem too. Little Boy's Responsibility. Delicate, yet a scar so big will you hurt, little boy? Your smile cuts through your face, warming the cold left in the room you sit. Will you frown, little boy? I ask, little boy, does this dull you? Will the words drawn now? Will these words be yours tomorrow? How fortunate to see a smile you call your own again. Little boy, may I remind you there's little time for humor. Little boy, may I remind you there's little time for humor. May I ask, what do you want to be when older? May you speak louder, little boy? Your answer's unchanged. You stare at me with your eyes stilled in tears as a sailor his first sail. Little boy, may your words reach my ears this time, as I can't promise your words will be heard as your own. Why sleep in your silence now, little boy? I vow this the only time I'll lend you my attention. And so that is the second of two poems, Little Boy's Responsibility. This one has some more detail. Some more concrete imagery. It still would be nice if it had even more, that we get a real sense of where we are in time and space a little bit. There's a nice music, and I think the ear for repetition here, that anaphora, that works really well. But still, we still need a lot more detail. There's still these generalities, and talking in generalities just doesn't connect because there's nothing for us to grab onto. So delicate, yet a scar so big, will you hurt, little boy? So we don't know. The scar is obviously like a figurative, so we don't really know what it's talking about, even though it says delicate and a scar. And then it's your smile cuts through your face, but a smile is just a very generic word. We don't really get a picture out of that. I mean, there's the Joker smile from Batman, and there's like a mother's loving smile. There's a smile from somebody that you're about to marry. There's a whole bunch of different smiles, and they mean totally different things. Your smile cuts through your face, warming the cold left in the room you sit. Will you frown, little boy? Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. I want to see where did Kimberly Gibson translate? Because Emily Arnold Fernandez says that I never thought of that. Your comment will stay with me. I want to see what this comment is. Oh, well, there you go. She was saying what I was saying. Kimberly Gibson Trent says, talking about smiles in poems and essays always feels awkward to me. You don't know what kind of smile I am picturing. Yeah, exactly. What I was just saying. There's so many different smiles. I mean, they're evil smiles. They're happy smiles. There's fake smiles. You smile with your eyes. Kimberly Gibson Trent says, too, can we know more about the little boy? How old? Where is he? What is he doing? What is he wearing? More descriptions, please. Yeah. And who and what the relationship is. I feel kind of like it's self-talk. I feel like the speaker is probably talking to themselves as a little boy, but I'm not sure. Like the little boy inside of them. It was my interpretation of it. But see, here's Morgan Feeney has a totally different interpretation, which I didn't think of. I think little boy is maybe referring to one of the atomic bombs, but I'm not sure. Yeah, there was Fat Man and Little Boy, right? I don't think it's that, but still, when there's a lot of generality, it's hard to know where to go. There's a lot of places you can go. But I think, yeah, Hammond agrees that's the younger self. I think that's what it is. But one of the things, if you're going to use this repetition, will you frown, little boy? I asked, little boy, does this dull you? Sitting there with your purple overalls and a chicken on your head, Give us some detail about where the boy is, what he's doing. Like, where are you sitting in relationship to the speaker? Where are we? Are we in a barn, in a loft, jumping into hay bales? What are we doing? Show us something. Yeah. Janette Burmia says, I was thinking of this as an abusive situation. And then, too, that the details can be used to guide and frame. What's that word? It's one of those words that they always talk about, like in 8th grade English class. It's like Thomas Hardy using the weather to represent the emotions of of the people. What's that called? I don't remember. That's how little labels like that matter. Yeah, but anyway, Kimberly Gibson Trent says, vague poems open themselves up to too much interpretation. I like poets to be guiding me with their craft. I want to know we are seeing almost the same thing, a shared experience. Pathetic fallacy, says Drymunch. No, it's not that. Yeah, I can't remember. Maybe, Katie Doder says pathetic fallacy. There's a different word I'm thinking of. Anyway, maybe I'm just thinking of the wrong word. Thank you anyway. Okay, pathetic fallacy is that. So, but yeah, adding details, it's also because there are sort of an infinite number of details you can choose. The details that you end up choosing, and what's really nice too, is that it sort of lets your subconscious be a guide, and that's one of the things that guides poems forward in interesting ways too. But the details that you choose tell us a lot, about what you're actually thinking about, what the context actually is, and then we feel like we're on the same journey as Kimberly said. So it's really specificity, and we say this a lot, so go back to past episodes if you want more, and this lecture again. But a lot of people think that talking generally allows poems to be easier to relate to because there's no specifics getting in the way. Like if, I'm talking about someone who's like 5'3" and I'm 5'7", how can I relate to them? That's not how it works. We don't have to have the same experience exactly in order to relate to it. That's why we have empathy and imagination. We step into the side of the speaker of the poem, no matter who it is, and the subjects of the poem we see, no matter who they are, and we relate to them and the level and the ground that the poem exists in. And so the more details you get, the more we enter the poem and experience the experience of that. Yeah. And so it's just details. We need those details. And look at any poem, it'll be full of details that's successful. So, yeah. And we're getting some suggestions too, like Mary Keating is saying, tell us where the scar is, what the room was like, what the words were. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thanks. I hope that was helpful. So there's two things to focus on, but the main thing is just adding more details, so we have more context. We don't have to guess at it. Yeah, and Kimberly Gibson Trent says, too, I find it funny that many folks who bring vague poems to workshops, in my past experiences, actually have a very specific scenario they're trying to convey. Then they say you just don't get it. Yeah. Yeah. And PMB says, yeah, they don't have to be real details. They can be fake details. Just make stuff up. Just give us something that we can feel is real, and then we can experience the poem. Yeah. Okay, well, I googled pathetic fallacy. Here's pathetic fallacy. And it is not what I was thinking about, but it is the exact definition I said. So you're all right. Pathetic fallacy is a literary device coined by John Ruskin in 1856 that projects human emotions onto nature or inanimate objects to set the mood, reflect a character's internal state, or foreshadow events, often used in poetry and fiction like weeping clouds, dancing daffodils, that kind of thing. But what is it? There's just this phrase that's on the tip of my tongue. And I can't remember what it is. It's going to drive me crazy until I just randomly remember it. Maybe I will by the end of the show. Is related to... It's like... objective correct... No. Yeah, okay, that's what it is. I guess... Objective correlative is a literary technique popularized by T.S. Eliot that uses a concrete set of objects, situations, or chain of events to evoke a specific intended emotion in the reader. Is that what I'm thinking of? I don't know. The point is, put concrete stuff in. Okay, let's take a look at, because I don't think that's even the word I was thinking of either. Anyway, let's take a look at the next poem. And then we had Janette Burmia next. So we'll go to... And then the third poet we had was, let's see if we can do it. Oops, I didn't write down the third poet. It was, I'll look it up later. Okay, Janette Burmia, it's got two, Ghosted and Essay, so maybe from the essay prompt, and or an assay, as we like to just argue about how to pronounce it. And Hollow Arch is two poems from Janette, and... let's see. Please comment on sentence structure, flow, line lengths, use of adjectives, too many, too few, connection throughout. This is my first attempt at an essay, so I'm particularly interested in knowing if I'm wandering too much. The answer already is no, I think, to the essay. The more you can wander in an essay is better. The second poem is not an essay, but the same question applies. Okay. Yeah, so the essay is a Jane Hirschfield form, or a mode maybe of poetry, where she sort of swirls around an object, looking at it from as many different angles as she can, kind of examining it like in material science you would do an essay. And here is Ghosted, an essay by Janette Burmia. Here you go. Ghosted, an essay. I howl at my phone, but silence speaks louder. Toxic green, 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 only my text to send. Wind blasts whittle the clear raindrops, drill into sandstone sculpting a canyon, but silence carves deeper. Only a circle of sky, not even the sound of a pebble pings at bottom. Like you were never there, like we were never there, you left me stranded with no trace, but gave the next climber, the next friend, the next lover, the specious thrill of thinking themselves first. No rope grooves, anchor points, or divots driven into layers of tectonic change. I was wrong to believe we were we. I pull myself up. Spas and mud from the Dead Sea cannot heal. The Dead Sea, 1/3 salt and shrinking. No outlet for its sorrows. Blue evaporates in the sun. Salt buoys me while I cry at the lowest place on earth. Even knowing the right questions, I have no answers. I cannot sink, but I can still drown. Preserved but not cured. Under precise conditions, ghost tracks, fossils of early people's footprints traipsing across wetlands from the Ice Age emerge and then disappear again into another great salt lake, into another white sands. Their impressions in mud, dancing dots, open wounds cleansed by salt. Hurt like hell. When amniotic sea levels creep in, hardwood mummifies. Blue, green, or green brittles into gray. roots and trunks poking through new marsh surfaces. An arbor of skeletons, a ghost forest rises, arms reaching up for rescue. The sinking terra firma, distinctly less firm, bristles, without leaves, without bark. Revenants rustle among the dead, a water-lapping dirge. What I did or didn't do rises like bubbles from mud. Is someone there? Don't whistle after darkfall. And if something hoots, don't give one back. No running. Walk slowly through upland forests where dirt doesn't shift, where loblolly pines hold their needles, where wild indigo blooms in the sun. To prevent the past from following me, I paint the windows, porch, and phone, haint blue, mimicking the sky. That's really cool. I like the concept in this conceit. So being ghosted, of course, having somebody drift away and not talk to you anymore. That sort of contemporary, well, I mean, I'm sure it's as old as time, but we do it a lot more easily today in the digital age. So that's a contemporary sort of topic. And I really love the different metaphors for that this poem builds through. I mean, we have that ghost forest, which is the what do you call it? Not the mummifying, the fossilizing of the wood in those forests from the salt water. We have other things like that, the sandstone sculpting canyon, we have the Dead Sea. All those things are really interesting examples of things gone away and being ghostly, And I think it works really great in like a structural. I mean, this is what an essay should be, I think, is moving around from all these different, it's like every way you can possibly think to look at it, and if I haven't looked at it this way yet, let's look at it that way. That's really how you want to go into this form. I think it does a good job of that. My main sort of overall, suggestion or critique is that I think some of these sections are too long, and I would like more concision in them. If you look at Jane's, let's look at one really quick. Why not? If you look at Jane's essays, they move pretty quick through different topics. Which one did we have in Rattle, though? We have wetness in Rattle. That's right. So this is an essay for wetness. Let's just read it really quickly. Wetness, an essay. Take a square, a circle, flip it over, ask it to rotate. Its face stays the same. An isosceles triangle doesn't choose which of its sides. A blinking light declares the whole night its far-off mountain. So already we have this geometry, then we have the blinking light. It's just a couplet for each one, And her other essays move this fast too, even if they're sort of smushed together more. A person titled or tilted at a single degree knows their life altered. Even after knows themselves guest in their own house. Sometimes you see rain first, sometimes you hear it. Wind doesn't come from all directions at once. But anywhere rain is, that place is wet. Wetness, knowledge of pelt, of hide, of skin, dear, ungovernable shivering. And so, she explores really in this, from an angle. I mean, everything is like, it's like, the whole Emily Dickinson tell it but tell it slant. Like it's everything, like every different slant you can think of to get at this and what wetness really is. But it moves through really quick. Is the point. And in Ghosted, we linger on these images just too long, because I find myself like forgetting and sort of losing interest slightly as we lingered on different things. I think if you got like, I think maybe the right sort of length to think of is like this length. If you get like 4 lines, and I think that's a good amount, or maybe 5 or 6 at most. But to get this much, I think we get too far astray. It's not that we've gone from too many angles, it's that we haven't moved fast enough. And I think that's my sense in this poem. Let me see what everybody else is saying in their opinions. Yeah. And Winston Munn says lots of interesting lines here. Terry Miller loves the lonesome loblolly pine. That is a great phrase. I love that. Petrified. Thanks for being my thesaurus. Yeah. Kimberly Gibson Tran says, what I did or didn't do is a nice turn and a needed turn. I think we should lean into that turn a little more. More details. Know the sin. Yes, I am nosy. Yeah. Yeah, well, let's go and let's read it more closely to talk about what I'm talking about here. Okay, ghosted, an essay. I howl at my phone, but silence speaks louder. Toxic green, green, green. Only my text to send. I think it's a very great description. We were talking about the importance of descriptions and how it feels. It's important to be pulled into the poem. Yeah. Heather Hay puts it this way. I think lingering in each emotion too long tilts toward melodrama. Some great lines to pare back, though. Exactly. It's a really great way to put it and explain what's going on, I think. But anyway, so right now we get this, the detail of the phone with only mine text descending and green, green. And it's really nicely done, too, because we don't really realize why green's toxic at first and and then it makes sense for that last line. So there's a nice, structure. There's like a setup punchline almost, even though it's not like a laugh. It's that feeling of being ghosted, And then wind blasts whittle and clear raindrops drill into sandstone, sculpting a canyon, but silence carves deeper. And imagine if we instead of jump all the way down to like spas and mud from the Dead Sea cannot heal the Dead Sea, 1/3 salt shrinking. We can even weave them a little bit more to make it feel like we're always touching close to reality, and then only a circle of sky, not even the sound of a pebble pings at the bottom. I mean, that's one thing, you kind of braid them too. But I think wind blasts whittling clear raindrops, the wind blasts, the whittle, you asked about adjectives. I think they're a little, I think that just this line is better without them. Without the wind blasts and raindrops drill into sandstone. You don't need there's excess words here too. Drill into sandstone, sculpting a canyon, but silence carves deeper. Only a circle of sky, not even a sound of a pedal pings at the bottom. Like you were never there, like we were never here. See, I don't think we need this stuff. You left me stranded, because we already get, the emotion is already here with this part, and we know what ghosted is a word. So we're already sort of on board feeling it. And this going into it does have the melodrama type thing. So I just focus on this. Like, look back how Jane, she didn't go into like the explaining the metaphor at all. She just hung it out there. And yeah. So anyway, like you were never there, like we were never there. You left me stranded with no trace. You gave me the next climber, the next friend, the next lover. See, this is where I started to get bored, frankly, with this stanza. Because we sort of got the idea. Once we get the idea, once you've conveyed that, just move on. You left me stranded with no trace, but gave the next climber, the next friend, the next lover, the spacious thrill of thinking themselves first. No rope grooves, anchor points, or so maybe even this section, because I think this is interesting with the rope grooves and the anchor points. That's really a different almost metaphor and place to go from the canyon here, at the top. And so, I don't know. I think maybe that you could come back to this later and have like a sort of a separate metaphor angle. But I'd keep them all like this length as this stanza. I was wrong to believe we. I pull myself up. Spas and mud from the Dead Sea cannot heal the Dead Sea. 1/3 salt and shrinking. No outlet. See, it's again, I think if we hovered here, we just let that sit. And we know what the metaphor is, what we can compare it to. And just saying, being ghosted, here's the Dead Sea. This mud and spas and mud. 1/3 salt and shrinking. The emotion is in there for that. Like, we don't need more. But no outlet for its sorrows. And again, I think we sort of abstract it, what was concrete, by calling it an outlet for sorrows itself. Blue evaporates with the sun. Salt buoys me while I cry at the lowest place on earth. Even knowing the right questions, I have no answers. I cannot sink, but I can still drown. Preserved, but not cured. And so basically, if you look at it, the beginning is a really powerful metaphor. And then this is the explanation for why it's a powerful metaphor. And if we just cut that and let us experience the metaphor directly, we'll experience it much more directly and purely ourselves. Janette Burmia says, ghost is a term for climber who leaves no marks of their climb, so others have a first. Well, that's really cool. I think maybe explain that a little bit more. One of the things and I love that detail. I got to say, Janette, by the way, um, one of the things and the reason why Jane thinks of this as a separate sort of form from her other writing is because she gives herself room to explain things like that in just sort of a matter-of-fact way, because it's like this list of different ways you can think about it. And I love that, but I didn't understand that, and I would love to understand that within the poem. Yeah, as Chelsea McClellan says, that's super interesting. It really is. So I love that detail. Get that in the poem. Like, just get this really concise, and it's a really great poem. I really like it. But it just does that thing where it explains its metaphor too often, and we just got to trust that we understand. You've set it up really well. I mean, calling it ghosted an essay, we know exactly what we're getting into. A lot of readers might not know what an essay is, but but we do, and they can look it up, and we know what ghosted is, and we definitely know once we get this part. So it's already set up. We're already on board. Trust your metaphors after that. Yeah. Under precise conditions, ghost tracks, fossils of early people's footprints. Yeah, again, I think like this section on its own works well, and then we explain it a little bit more, and we don't need to. Yeah, I think there's a little bit this section. I think there's some stuff we can just cut to as just over, more adjectives than we need. When amniotic sea levels creep in, hardwood mummifies, green brittles into gray, roots and trunks poking through new marsh surfaces, an arbor of skeletons, a ghost forest arises, arms reaching up for rescue, and sinking terra firma, distinctly less firm. It just sort of goes on. I think there's a much more concise way you can describe this section. Yeah. Okay, well, I think we got the gist of it. A really great idea and great lines to use in a poem. I think just paring back the explanations and adding a little bit more of sort of the facts. Like why is this ghost thing? Like why the ghost climber and things like that. Like, feel free to just tell us, because that's really interesting. PMB says, could the lines be longer? I mean, they could. The line length sort of governs a bit how you pace, how you read a poem, how much the white space sort of sits out there. I could easily see, if you look back at Wetness in a say, Jane had couplets, and there's sort of a length that an idea sits at. It's like short lines if it's 4 lines, and if we could make it couplets too, we could get rid of this line break right there, and this line break right there, and then it'd be 2 couplets about the same length, So yeah. Okay. Let's take a look at the other poem. I think we got this one covered. The other one is this, Hollow Arches. And this is not an essay, but another poem we'll take a look at for some of the similar things. Maybe we'll go into more detail since it's not about that form. Hollow Arches. Under overpasses and in doorways, thin tents and grime layered coats over, shoulders hunched against the wind, shrugging off snow-filled creases like valleys on rooftops left alone, a quiet burial. 200,000 spring leaves per tree, arched, outstretched, catching the wind, limbs in tent wall nylon, once as orange as the leaves themselves, lie closer to the roots than the sky. Gray-laced, litter and equal human shadows ignored except in their brilliance, are crushed under shoes and frost. Transient means passed over, so we push people away from the thresholds to sleep in a river break. And when temperatures fall at night, we shut our doors, stay inside, turn up the heat. A frozen body is found in the morning leaning against a dumpster. He draws more attention than an unhoused man alive. Heartwood holds a tree together. As long as buttress roots remain, the tree's life will not succumb to gales, sleet, or snow. We have the means, cement and rebar arch overhead, but even trees fall among their own. Let's Hollow Arches. And I feel like the poem really took up started taking off when I think it's like 4 stanzas in, maybe a little bit earlier. In this third stanza, I felt like the poem was sort of spinning its wheels a little bit about what we were talking about. Yeah. So where is that? Transient means passed over, so we push people away from the thresholds of sleep in a riverwood break. Pushing people away, and it is let's see. Emily Arnold Fernandez says, so we push people away, etc. Feels like it is telling me what to feel rather than showing me. It would be more powerful if we just saw the body. For this here, I feel like that's the springboard of detail that makes the poem kind of take off for the poet. And that was at the place, because we got this physical, it sort of zoomed in on the one person. And maybe we could make it less sort of telly as we did that, but that's where the poem sort of starts leaping off the page. So we push people away from the threshold of sleep in a riverwood break. Really nice line there too. And when temperatures fall at night, we shut our doors, stay inside, turn up the heat. A frozen body is found in the morning leaning against the dumpster. So it's the details here are what make the poem sort of take off. Yeah, as Kimberly Gibson Tran says, things really heighten for me with a dead body, which makes its own thematic point about how we don't seem to care unless we see a dead body. Yeah. Yeah, and Morgan Finney says, I think you could tell from Tim's pace where the poem took off. Yeah, exactly. Like you start to get hooked in, and it's the reason why we call it a hook. Abigail Cargo says, line breaks are neatly done at each breath. It's very nice, and I enjoy that. While editing, you can even shake things up a bit with unexpected enjambment. Yeah. So the main thing I think for this is the entry into the poem. So I want to reread these first 3 stanzas and see what we can do about it. Under overpasses and in doorways, thin tents and grime-layered coats cover shoulders hunched against the wind, shrugging off snow-filled creases like valleys on rooftops. I guess part of the snow-filled creases like valleys on rooftops. I mean, hard to follow that. Like what that is specifically describing. Left alone, a quiet burial. I'm not sure what's being buried at that point either. 200,000 spring leaves per tree. I'm not sure what tree you're talking about. So part of it is I don't really feel like I understand what you're talking about in this beginning. Arched, outstretched, catching the wind, limbs and tent wall nylon. So is this just a huge tree? Are there really 200,000 leaves per tree on an actual tree? Because we're talking about an overpass. I feel a little lost too, as the leaves themselves lie closer to the roots than the sky. Gray-laced litter and equal human shadows ignored except in their brilliance are crushed under shoes and frost. Dry Montijo says, are we getting buried in fallen leaves? Yeah. Yeah, and so both Kimberly and Emily Arnold Fernandez are saying what if the poem started with a dead body? And I think that's where I lean toward too. I mean, that's where the poem really takes off. Laura Buxbaum says, I think on House people are sleeping in the street on a snowy night. Yeah, that they definitely are, yeah. But how this connects to the overpasses and the tree, yeah, I don't know. It's a little muddled. Let's read to the end now. And when temperatures fall at night, we shut our doors, stay inside, turn up the heat. A frozen body is found in the morning. See, none of the two. There's a bluntness and a sharpness to these lines, which is why the reading feels better too. And then there's a turn too. You turn up the heat, and then something happens. A frozen body is found in the morning, leaning against the dumpster. He draws more attention than an unhoused man alive. Heartwood holds a tree together as long as buttress roots remain. The tree's life will not succumb to gales, sleet, or snow. So there is a tree over the dumpster that a tent is pitched up against. I'm not sure. We have the means, cement and rebar arch overhead, but even trees fall among their own. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like the poem has a kind of overarching metaphor. PNB says read it backwards. It's a good idea, actually. Let's see how that works. Cement and rebar arch overhead, but even trees fall among their own. We have the means, Hardwood holds a tree together. As long as buttress roots remain, the tree's life will not succumb to gales, sleet, or snow. A frozen body is found in the morning, leaning against the dumpster. He draws more attention than an unhoused man alive. And when temperatures fall at night, we shut our doors, stay inside, turn up the heat. Yeah. I think, I don't know, it feels like there's a sort of a metaphor that's trying to be built in this poem it's just not complete. And I think that's just it. My advice would be to start with the body, start with this vision, because that's where the voice took off and what you really wanted to talk about, it seemed like, and see where it goes from there without sort of, it feels like an artificial frame to talk about the trees. And I think it should go, it'll go somewhere different when you start doing that, I think. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks. Hope that was helpful. Let's take a look at the other poet here, which was, so we have like 10 minutes left. It was Jay. Oh, where'd that go? Hang on. Let me scroll to the top. I can't remember the name. Granola. J.R. Granola. Okay. Let's take a look at that. But thanks for sharing this. And see if we got that. Yeah, J.R. Granola, Critique of the Week, 2 poems. Hope they're short because we don't have tons of time, but let's see what we got. Yeah, they're pretty short. Okay. J.R.'s from Oakland, California. Let's take a look. A Day in Midlife. And let's, I got nice clean. There we go. A Day in Middle Life. I pull myself from the mess to a place of rest and breathe in sweet relief. Again, escaped from disappointment's wounding tangle with knitting words to soothe and shush my trembling heart and recall past tales of sadness, conquered, wielding double blades of wit and will to bind me whole again. Yet counter truths and wordless whispers also tend my embattled soul. Yet counter truths and wordless whispers also tend. But I did it again. Sorry. My current perch is nested, comfort built, precarious, unsolid, will surely fall away and toss in wingless flight. My fledgling self returned to torrid unbecoming beneath the frothy surface. Gasping, tearing, spitting out upon the sand, dissolving at once, return to churn. And even now, clutched in dissolution's grip, my words clanging, anchors thrown into future's gloried impermanence. It was J.R. Granola, A Day in Middle Life. And I think there's similar to other poems we've seen, really not the nets earlier, but other poems. We're getting a lot of vagueness. In having the scene set would be really helpful. Having a sense of where we are with more concrete language. There's some, as Janette Burmia says, there's some nice sounds and rhythm. Kimberly Gibson Tran explains it this way. Disappointment's wounding tangle. Stop right there and tell me what the disappointment is about specifically. Yeah. And that's the thing, just more specificity so we can connect to it. It's a general thing that just happens so often, but again, we have a tendency to think that more general is more connective and emotional, and really it's the opposite. More specific. The more specificity you can get, the more we feel and respond to it. Heather Hayes is struggling to find an image. So nice sense of rhyme. Molly House is pointing out the slant rhymes are nice. There's a nice rhythm to it. It was easy to read. So there's a nice, that aspect of it is nice. It's the having concrete detail, having specificity, so we know really what journey we're on with you. Similar to the first couple poems we saw. And then also there's some cliches that pop out here and some sort of melodramatic language. We want to pair that out because that's sort of forcing, trying to force an emotion on the reader, and that doesn't work. What works is, it's building a scene so we enter, so we can have the empathy of actually being the speaker. I mean, when I read your poem, my breath is your medium. I'm becoming you. I'm speaking you. Your voice is the writer, whatever voice you're creating. And that is where the more real I can feel as you, the more I'll feel the poem as I'm reading it. And so having a lot of detail and specificity makes me feel more like you, and then I have more emotion reading it, and that's what we're really talking about. And so when we have, adjectives, there's sort of these energetic verbs that just feel like they're trying to push you to have energy in the poem. That's not the thing that makes you feel that way. It's having an actual voice that feels real and a scene we can enter and grab onto and concrete things. So I'll talk a little bit about what I'm talking about in more detail. So a day in middle life. I pull myself from the mess to a place of rest and breathe in sweet relief. Again, sweet relief, a bit of a cliche. So and the problem with cliche is it doesn't have the energy of sort of making new stimulus in someone's brain because we've heard it 1,000 times. So it's like a weak punch. Again, escape from disappointment's wounding tangle with knitting words. I like knitting words. That's nice. But what is the disappointment? And if you can tell us that, then we can get on board with you. To soothe and shush my trembling heart. Again, trembling hearts are very common. And recall past tales of sadness. Like what tales? Like tell us the tales. We want to know. We're here to listen until we're lulled out of our attention. Conquered, wielding double blades of wits and will to bind me whole again. I mean, so we have this sort of metaphor of the wit and will being double blades. But what are they exactly? Yeah. Looking at where somebody says exactly Dick Westheimer, and oh yeah. Yeah, so Dick Westheimer says, "Oh boy of advice for all three poets today, show up week after week. It has been listening to the critiques of others' poems that has helped me most in writing better poems." Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. And Nancy Semenik says, "I don't know what this is really trying to say," which is sort of ultimate. Anyway, let's keep going. Knitting words to soothe and shush my trembling heart and recall the past tales of sadness, conquered, wielding double blades of wit and will to bind me whole again. So we don't really know what's going on. Like we know that there's some kind of turmoil that I'm struggling with, and but we don't know what the details are. Yet counter truths and wordless whispers also tend my embattled soul. And embattled soul is kind of melodramatic, and soul always is. Being embattled sort of is. It's just and how? Like, how is it embattled? We really want the details. We want the story. And what counter truths? We need the truth first to know what a counter truth is, but we got to get the story. My current perch is in nested comfort, built precariously unsolid. Will surely fall away and toss in wingless flight. My fledgling self return to torrid unbecoming beneath my frothy surface. And then these participles, the grasping, tearing, those are the kind of actiony verbs that sort of make a false energy, So being more understated works better. Yeah. So PMB is referring back to the title. Midlife is what the current perch is, and that makes sense, but we don't feel it, we don't see it, we're not sitting there yet. Grasping, tearing, spit it out upon the sand, dissolving at once, return to churn. And even now, clutched in dissolution's grip, my words clinging, anchors thrown onto future's gloried impermanence. It's a nice idea behind that one. It's very similar to the first poem, actually. That we saw today, where there's a nice idea behind it. It's just too vaguely shared for us to really cling to it. But there's something there that's worth expressing and wants to be expressed, I'd say. Let's take a look at the other one. We have a few minutes, I guess. Duppy conquered. We'll see if this has the same kind of generality that just pulls the poem back. Let's see what it's the same thing. Duppy conquered. I'm already curious. I'm interested in Duppy. That's a word I've never seen before, and so that makes me curious to read it. Duppy conquered. I've become the prey, exposed in the meadow, freshly opened for a new hunting season. A data point darting amongst enchantments. A bee being followed endlessly by cookies. I'm cooked. Can't let my wits fly amok. So lucky, I'm hired, so acquired and rewired. Oh, what skills I'll gain, or rather 6 new gigs unpaid. Checker, waiter, trader, persuader, administrator, exfoliator. Checks are coming when I start running the mail. I'm possessed by need and pulled in beauty strings, my space carved out by empty embrace of excessive tastes. And really now, tasty me, classic, switcheroo, watch me now, a dancing fool. I lit up on my scene, shit nobody else seen. The narrow vision algorithmically arrowed to pierce my fleshy pliables with banal nonsense buttered in meaning, complacently remade on a screen display. I be Duppy conquered. So fun sounds. There's some nice, there's some amusing lightheartedness in here. My advice for this one is to, so first of all, the poem it's very clearly sort of not edited because the beginning is so different from halfway through. I've become the prey exposed in the meadow, freshly open for a new hunting season, a data point darting amongst enchantments, a bee being followed endlessly. The first time you get any hint of the extreme rhyming going on later is the bee and endlessly. But really, it's like a totally different voice. And then we hit the rhyme, and we're like, oh, let's start rhyming a lot, you know? And so very clear, like, this is a separate poem. Like, you started a poem, and then he wrote a different poem, and they're still, you know, like Frankenstein together. So if you want the poem to go this way, and this is the fun way, there was some nice lines and some cleverness, and it was amusing. There's some things I chuckled a little bit at. This is the better poem. We still don't know what Duppy is. Yeah. Okay, Laura Bucksbaum helps us out, though. Duppy is a word of African origin commonly used in various Caribbean islands, including the Bahamas, Barbados, and Jamaica, meaning a ghost or spirit. The word is sometimes spelled Duffy. Okay, well, that's interesting. So that's Duppy conquered. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, the poem takes off in this, and a lot of times I'd say, you know, don't let the rhyme like run your poem. And I would advise, I think, you know, Light Quarterly, are they still called Light Quarterly, or is it Light Journal now? I know they changed their name not too long ago. So Melissa Balmain is the editor. Now it's Light Poetry Magazine. It used to be Light Quarterly. So lightpoetrymagazine.com. That's a great place for light. A lot of it's verse. It's not all verse, but you get a lot of verse in there, and all of it light at Light Poetry Magazine. Go there, lightpoetrymagazine.com. Read a lot of light poetry because that's where this is going and you're having fun with. But if you're going to have, you know, a poem like this, a humorous, rhyming type, a little bit of a Seussian nature to the poem, it is important to understand, you know, verse itself. You know, if you read Dr. Seuss, Dr. Seuss writes all in anapaests. It's very well metered. He knows what he's doing as far as the form goes. If you look at a poet like Carol Ann Duffy, or like who am I thinking of? I'm having one of those days where I'm just like, everything's on the tip of my tongue. You know, the poet who writes those short little poems for the New Yorker, like in the 40s, the woman, what's her name? Dang, it's right there. Anyway, Dorothy Parker. Okay, Dorothy Parker. So if I, you know, look at Dorothy Parker's poems, the meter is consistent. There's a beat, and the rhymes land in the places they're supposed to rhyme. There's play with that. And here it's sort of a hodgepodge where, like, there's a natural ear because we've read nursery rhymes. We all have. That's how we learn reading. You know, we hear that Dr. Seuss rhythm with the anapaest. That's one of the sort of things in our large language model. So that's coming out in a way that this is working in some places on the level of the meter and the rhyme being where it's supposed to be. But then it breaks down and is not. So it feels very clunky and sort of haphazard too because of that. And I mean, the problem is, maybe that would work a long time. Well, I don't know. I don't know when that would work. I mean, maybe it'd be amusing as a Facebook post, I guess, or something like that. But people who read poetry have a more refined taste than that, I guess I should say. And there's really no other place to publish stuff besides for that. So if you want to have an audience of literary people, you got to learn the craft of formal verse if you're going to write formal verse. And so that would be my advice too. Get the meter consistent because it's here and there. Like the ear for it is there, but it's not consistent in this poem. Let me see what everyone else is saying. And then we'll wrap it up. Kimmy Gibson Trent says it would work better performed, perhaps. Yeah. Yeah, Molly House says it's sometimes echoing a hip-hop sound. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are echoes of nice formal meters in it. And nice, the anaphora riffs and the rhyme of hip-hop are sort of in there too. But, yeah. Entering Dry Mantita says this is the wasteland of formalist Franken poem. I mean, what I mean by that is multiple voices unintentionally living within the same poem. It's like you're pasting someone's head onto a different body, and that's what this felt, with the sort of taking off in a totally different direction as far as how we're writing it. I should say too that the opening metaphor isn't bad. I kind of like that, and that being a data point darting amongst enchantments, that's not bad. But that's like a different poem. So like this is take that poem somewhere else and start over here, and then just try to get the meter consistent. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, thanks. Hopefully this was helpful. Oops, did I say Diane Seuss? maybe I meant to say Dr. Seuss and said Diane. That's funny. Okay, but anyway, yeah, that's going to wrap up the critique for this week. Thanks, everybody, for participating. I hope that it was helpful for all involved, whether you shared a poem yourself or not. Just sitting around talking about poetry is fun. It should be, and hope it is. So let's see. Coming up on the Rattlecast this week, the prompt is going to be right here. Write a poem that examines a surprising aspect of a job you otherwise generally love to do. That is your prompt for this week. And the prompt lines, make sure you submit your poems to Katie by midnight Sunday night to make sure she considers them for an invitation to share your poem on the prompt lines during the Rattlecast. And the Rattlecast guest this week is going to be Alexandra Oliver. So we mentioned Slam just a while ago. Is this really nice performance poem if it was cleaned up a bit? Alexandra is a slam poet and a formal poet, so it's a perfect combination to what we were just talking about. It's a sort of a rare combination, more in the formal poetry. There's an anthology she wrote too, or edited, of formal poetry in Canada, I believe. Her newest book, or most recent book, is Hail, the Invisible Watchman. She's also going to read some newer poems from a forthcoming manuscript. It should be a lot of fun talking to Alexandra. Again, we'll be talking about performing and slam at the same time as we talk about other stuff too. So that is Alexandra Oliver, Rattlecast number 331. And the prompt again, write a poem that examines a surprising aspect of a job you otherwise generally love to do. That's your Rattlecast. Monday night, February 23rd, the regular time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hope to see you there. Hope you have a great weekend in the meantime, and we'll talk to you later. Good night.